Hello, nice to meet you. This is Dr. Kim from Richgo. Hello, nice to meet you. This is Kim Ki-hyun from Richgo. Today we've come up with a fun title for our topic: dwindling money, decreasing consumption, increasing delinquency rate. As the saying goes, the delinquency rate is at an all-time high. The delinquency rate of household loans and consumption power have both significantly decreased, so we would like to discuss the overall background of this situation. The current atmosphere seems really concerning.
I really feel that a huge dark cloud is gathering right now. The first article mentions that household surplus is now barely reaching 1 million won per month. What is surplus money? So it's like the well is drying up. There is no money. As you can see here, it has decreased for 8 consecutive quarters. This is said to be the longest in history. Compared to the same period last year, income has been decreasing for 8 consecutive quarters. In fact, people often say that even when they are in surplus, there is nothing left over. That's right. So what does surplus mean? It refers to the amount left after deducting consumption expenditure, such as living expenses, and non-consumption expenditure, like interest and taxes, from income. In other words, the surplus is simply what is left after all expenses are paid. However, this has been decreasing for 8 quarters now, and the seriousness of this situation is that it is the longest decline since 2006. It continues to decrease.
So anyway, can I interpret the fact that household surplus has decreased to mean that I have less money to spend, which leads to sluggish domestic demand?
That's right. So, first, let's examine the reasons why there has been such a decrease in surplus. So, why are people's pockets continuously running dry? There are 2 reasons for this. The first is the role of high inflation. Because prices are so high, it is natural that I need to take care of my basic needs. Right.
Income isn't increasing much, but with prices rising, it's only natural that...
Yes, that's right. As a result, our real income has decreased, and the second factor is the increased interest costs due to high interest rates. So, based on the second and fourth quarters of 2022, the interest expense was about 86,000 won. However, this has significantly increased to 121,000 won in the first quarter of 2024. Due to the burden of interest from high inflation and high interest rates, people's financial resources are continuously drying up.
I think household loans are probably the largest portion of what people are paying.
That's right. Given that, how has our Richgo been managing consumption over the past year or two? Have you been reducing it or increasing it?
Of course, I am also cutting back. It's not a problem with loans. I'm just being a bit cautious because I'm being swayed by my own economic decline.
That's right. Then we tend to cut back on dining out and also on buying clothes. That's right. As a result, these factors are currently leading to a contraction in consumer sentiment. People are not spending money. As a result, non-durable goods like vehicle fuel, durable goods such as passenger cars, and also entertainment, hobbies, and sports equipment are all experiencing a downturn. As a result, I believe that the fundamental cause of the situation with the team members and the UNFPA incident is the contraction of consumer sentiment.
That's right.
If you ask me, I probably would have continued to engage in borrowing and repaying using the money I received, since I would be spending anyway as money comes in. However, it eventually fell apart while I was trying to manage it this way, which is what happened with the T-Money and Wave app situation. The fundamental cause of this is said to be the contraction of consumer sentiment. So I have that thought. Before a major earthquake occurs, we often experience various aftershocks. I believe the same applies to the economy. You should never overlook the various signs of consumption contraction and economic recession that are happening around us right now. I believe that as these factors continue to accumulate, the possibility of a significant earthquake occurring is steadily increasing.
In fact, no one would have thought that such a large platform could change so much in just a few days, of course.
Right.
I believe everyone can feel just how serious it is.
That's right. So, what does that mean? We are heading towards a complete recession. There is something called the Current Economic Index that indicates the current economic situation. Do you know how serious this is? It's as serious as when the financial crisis hit. What kind of crisis is it now? The crisis hasn't broken out yet, but the current economic situation is almost similar to the worst periods of the financial crisis in November and December 2008. It's that serious right now. As a result, starting with a decrease in consumption, retail sales are declining, which in turn is causing a further decrease in the income of small business owners and self-employed households, creating a vicious cycle that is now emerging. As the dual challenges of high interest rates and high inflation continue, it seems that the vicious cycle is now accelerating.
But I also saw an article saying that consumer prices are stabilizing at around 2%.
That's right.
What is that then?
That's right. So, what is this? There are various statistics, but if you look here, it's the consumption sales index. This has now decreased by 2.3% compared to the same period last year. The consumption sales index encompasses not only household consumption, but also dining services closely related to it, serving as an indicator to glimpse the actual trends in consumption. However, this index has been declining for 16 consecutive months since April of last year, which means that consumption continues to be low. This is the longest period since the statistics began being compiled in 2010. This means that people have not been consuming for 16 consecutive months. Since May of last year, the number of startups in the food service and bar industries has been declining. It's quite similar. And now, hasn't the consumer price that you just mentioned stabilized? It's currently around 2%. That's right.
The article has completely the opposite content, right?
That's right. While this statement is accurate, if we look into it in more detail, what are the prices of energy, agricultural products, and dining out that are directly related to people's livelihoods? It means that prices are still soaring. In other words, the prices we feel in our daily lives are still experiencing a tremendous surge. Now, I've pulled up some related articles, and as you can see, money is really tightening up right now. The current deficit of savings banks in the first half of the year is 380 billion won. The delinquency rate has now increased to around 8%. Additionally, in this financial sector, aside from household loans, there are land collateral loans. Although the balance of these loans has decreased somewhat, what is the delinquency rate for them? The delinquency rate for secured loans in the financial sector is 14.4%. This is truly astonishing. This is really a big problem. Moreover, the delinquency rate for credit card companies is reportedly at its highest in 10 years. So right now we see that the delinquency rate is increasing. Look, people's financial situations are shrinking, which means they are not able to consume. However, the delinquency rate is also rising. The current situation is heading towards a very serious phase. As you can see, even savings banks had only a 2.6% delinquency rate in the first half of 2022, but now it has increased nearly fourfold, which is an enormous rise. Not only savings banks, but also credit card companies and banks are experiencing rising delinquency rates across the board. To summarize, household surpluses are currently decreasing for the longest period ever. People are running out of pocket money because they are spending what little they have left on expenses and interest payments. Consequently, the consumption sales index is experiencing the longest decline in history, leading people to stop consuming. Yet, the delinquency rates for credit card companies and others are at their highest in 10 years. But about the national pension we talked about last time, we have to pay more taxes. I mean, it's like telling us to just die. Get hit once, then twice, then 3 times, and then get hit again.
With the inability to secure loans and the increasing delinquency rate, people will need to tap into their national pension and reduce their consumption expenditure. If that happens, it will certainly have an impact on the real estate market as well.
So, this is not just the real estate market. Recently, the US stock market is also experiencing a correction, and the Korean stock market is currently one of the worst in the world. Here, we also have the capital gains tax. I really can't help but worry about where this country, South Korea, is headed right now. But in this situation, are apartment prices the only thing that is rising? This is an enormous delusion. Ultimately, this kind of thing is bound to collapse. Now, if we compare this to exercise, it's like this. Have you ever seen someone like that? They do a lot of upper body workouts, so their upper body is huge and muscular, but their lower body hasn't been exercised at all, and it's skinny and frail. When you see someone like that, how do they look? Do they appear stable, or do they look unstable? It's funny, isn't it? I think the current state of the South Korean real estate market, which could collapse at any moment, is exactly like this. For people to buy houses, they need to have money in the meantime, right? That way, they can spend a bit and keep the economy moving. But what do we have now? A vicious cycle. A vicious cycle. We've entered this loop of negative cycles. However, the government, trying to boost the real estate market with special measures, is caught up in this short-term rebound, believing it will continue. This is extremely dangerous. Let me tell you, it is really dangerous right now. When have I ever said something like this? You remember I said it in October 2021, right? At that time, I received many negative comments. I received many hate comments like, how does big data have to do with real estate? But what happened 6 months later? About 6 months later, there was chaos. And I still feel the same way. It is very similar. The forced adjustments are now coming to an end, and household loans are being tightened significantly. After 2025, the stress DSR will be implemented for the third time.
Anyway, now that September has arrived, there seems to be a bit of a slowdown due to various regulations and loan policies. But the John's prices, right now, the John's prices are still a concern. I think this also needs to be addressed.
But this is also the case. In the first, second, and third quarters of 2024, the amount of new housing supply in Seoul will be the lowest in history for 3 consecutive quarters. So the Jeonse prices will rise. Considering that, Jeonse prices should increase much more than they are now. The increase in John's prices is not as strong as it used to be. Yes, and let me tell you, was there anyone who predicted John's prices in the second half of 2022? At that time, everyone said there was a shortage of rental properties and that John's prices would skyrocket, pushing up the sale prices as well. But what happened? John's prices plummeted even more than sale prices. I don't think such a situation will occur in the real estate market in 2025. And from the fourth quarter of this year, the number of new residents in Seoul will rise. Next year's first quarter will also see an increase. That's why the real estate market is currently experiencing an abnormal boom, but it is only in the apartment sector. The rest of the market is in disarray. This situation will inevitably return to normal.
You have been avoiding household loans and relying more on credit loans, right? That's why the balloon effect is occurring. However, they have sent signals to the credit card companies to be a bit more flexible and provide loans to the actual owners. Could this have an impact?
It can have an impact, of course. But what is the important overarching framework? It's that they will continue to tighten loans. There will be a second implementation behind the stress, right? And then there will be a third implementation next year. During tough times, there might be moments when it feels a bit suffocating. But what is the big picture? It continues to tighten the noose. Household loans can only continue to decrease. Just wait and see. There seems to be a considerable possibility that the real estate market in the second half of 2025 could experience a tremendous crash, similar to that of the second half of 2022.
Today's topic addressed the increase in the delinquency rate and the decrease in consumption power, ultimately concluding that these factors can naturally have a negative impact on the real estate market. Therefore, it seems we should approach these aspects with caution. I will wrap up today's discussion here.
Yes, thank you.